I'm going to show you how to exploit every player in your live poker game in under 30 minutes. All you got to do, pay attention to showdowns, and when you see a player in your game make one of these 11 mistakes, you will be Randy Johnson throwing a 101-mile-an-hour fastball, and they will be an innocent bird. Exploit number 1. When you're playing against a player who likes to limp re-raise pre-flop. We all know the type, the guy who likes to get a little bit trappy, limp in with aces or kings, someone else raises, comes back around to them, and they lay down the hammer. Here's how to exploit the pants off that type of player. The first adjustment I may make against this type of player, when they limp in from up front, I'm just going to be much tighter with my ISO raising. I'm going to be doing much more over limping or just folding behind. So we see here they limp in from the hijack. I may just over limp a hand like pocket sixes here against this player type. Adjustment number 2 against this player, when we do have a really good hand here, like a suited Broadway, queen jack suited here, and we go for the ISO raise, maybe someone calls, and now they go for the limp re-raise. What do they have? Aces, kings, maybe queens and ace king suited. So the way to punish that is just to fold a lot. Do not reward them for playing this strategy. And finally, let's look at the other side of the coin, because it's pretty easy to determine, okay, when they limp, we should be much tighter, and when they limp raise, we should fold a lot. But I think what actually is most interesting, what happens when they open raise here? I'm just going to be 3-betting much wider and much more aggressively. Why? Because when they open raise, they just don't have the top of their range. Those aces, those kings, those queens, those ace-king suited type hands are most likely going for the limp raise. So when they open, especially from up front, I just know they're never going to 4-bet me. So I'm just going to be 3-betting here, even with a hand as weak as sixes, shutting out the blinds here and just getting the pot heads up in position against a player who I'm going to have a skill edge against post-flop. Exploit number 2, when you're playing against a player who sometimes limps and sometimes opens. So say this player doesn't really go for the limp raises, but they sometimes limp some of their weaker or medium hands, and they just open when they have really good hands. So here are the exploits to make against this player. When this type of player limps, I'm just going to be ISOing much wider here. So we see this player limps from the hijack. I'm going to be ISOing a hand like 6-5 suited here. I may even go wider here on the button, hands like 7-5 suited, 8-6 suited, any pocket pair, any offsuit Broadway cards, just knowing that if this player had a stronger hand, they would be open raising. The other side of the coin against this type of player who does have a bunch of limps, when they do open, we just need to be much tighter. If I have a suited connector, I'm probably just folding if I'm somewhere in the field. If the blinds are going to be two rather passive players who aren't going to be putting in a lot of 3-bet squeezes, I may come along and call here with a hand like 6-5 suited on the button. But if there is a reg in the blinds or a more aggressive player in the blinds who's going to be doing a lot of 3-betting, I may just pitch a hand like this. Don't reward this guy when they open, because they're just opening with such a tight range. I mean, it may be like 6%, 8% of hands. So just do a ton of folding. All right, guys, real quick, if you're enjoying the video, please hit that subscribe button. Every time you subscribe to Hungry Horse Poker, there's a person out there somewhere in the world who sees that subscribe count go up and they save a turtle. If you would like to save the turtles, subscribe to Hungry Horse Poker right now. Exploit number 3, when you are playing against a player who cold calls 3-bets. Well, what does that mean? Let me show you an example. All right, so let's say it folds to us on the button. We're gonna open a suited ace. Now the small blind, a reg named Rob, is going to 3-bet us. And now the villain in the hand is going to cold call the 3-bet for $80. Generally, when players cold call 3-bets, they're not going to have aces, they're not going to have kings, they're just not going to have that very top of range. What do players mostly have when they cold call 3-bets? 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks, maybe some suited Broadways, some king, queen suited, hands like that. They're going to have a lot of good hands, but they're just not going to have the great hands. So the adjustment here as the pre-flop raiser is just to go buck wild 4-betting, especially if the 3-better is going to be 3-betting at an appropriate frequency. We can just put a ton of pressure on here, and there's just a ton of money out there. So I would just be 4-betting quite a lot here whenever we face a cold call. The other side of the coin is looking at the same situation for when this type of player cold 4-bet. So what is a cold 4-bet? Let's say somebody opens here on the button. We are going to put in a 3-bet with kings, and now they wake up and they put in the 4-bet after it goes open and 3-bet in front of them. The adjustment against this type of player is to LOL fold almost everything except aces and maybe kings, because remember, they're just going to be cold calling this 3-bet with hands like ace, king, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, king, queen suited. So what does that mean when they wake up with a cold 4-bet? Well, they probably have aces or kings. Exploit number 4, and the cool part of this is I would say 80% of live poker players you play against are going to fall into this bucket. And that is the type of player who's going to fast play whenever they have very strong hands on wet dynamic boards, but they're still going to play their draws relatively passively. So let me give you an example. We open pocket nines on the button. This player calls in the big blind. They check to us. In general, I am going to choose a c-bet size where they raise off their strong shit and call with their weak shit, and usually around half pot is going to get that done. So now they call on this flop. So now let's talk about how to play blank turns. I'm going to be doing a lot of overbetting because if they have a hand like Jack X or Ace X of spades or King X of spades, well, they're just going to be doing a ton of calling on the turn. So let's just pile in more money right now with pocket nines. And the reason here I may want to overbet with a hand that's complete air, like 7-6 of diamonds here, on a lot of rivers, they're just going to be hard pressed to call a triple barrel, especially if we put all the money in. And then let's say the river is another blank. Well, with pocket nines, we may want to size down to get called by King Jack or Queen Jack. And with 7-6 of diamonds, we may just want to put all the money in to get Jack X to fold. So against these type of players, the way you punish them on blank turns is you just do a lot of overbetting, knowing that they don't have top of range. Now, same situation, we open button, this player calls, same flop here, we flop middle set, and we are going to c-bet half pot, they call. The adjustment against this player type on nut changing turns, specifically when the flush comes in or an obvious straight draw comes in, we are going to be doing a lot of small betting when the nuts change. Why? Because when the draws come in, since they mostly play their draws passively on the flop, now they're just going to have a lot of flushes, or if a straightening card comes in, a lot of straights. So we want to be putting in a small bet. Now, pocket nines is good enough here to bet for value. We're still targeting hands like Ace Jack, King Jack, Queen Jack. So we want to bet small to make sure those hands don't fold. And now if they put in a raise, they have a flush. That's okay. We've still got the stack depth behind to hopefully boat up on the river when we call. And if we do have a complete air ball here, say a hand like 7-6 of diamonds again, we would also want to bet small, because what happens when we bet small, they're going to raise off all their flushes and we just fold, but they're going to be calling with a bunch of weak hands on this turn, like pocket eights with a spade or Queen 10 of hearts. We have a very profitable bluff opportunity on the river when they don't raise this turn, because we've just eliminated most of the flushes from their range. And remember, the best bluff is a bluff where they call the flop, call the turn, and fold the river. If we bet big on this turn, they may just fold a hand like Ace Jack without a spade, and that's okay. But think about the range that gets to the river then if we bet big here with 7-6 of diamonds and they call. It's probably just going to be flushes and very strong hands, and that's not a range I feel comfortable bluffing on the river. So the adjustment against this type of player on nut changing turn cards is in general to bet small. One more adjustment against this type of player who's going to fast play a lot of their good hands but play their draws passively. We open pocket jacks here on the button, they call, we flop the nuts. Look at that sweet baby there.
Look at that sweet baby there.
They check, we're gonna go with the half pot c-bet, and now they put in the raise. We got pocket jacks, we got this board crushed. We should just call, right? No! When they raise on this board, what do they have? Since they're not playing their draws aggressively, it just mostly means they have value. Pocket nines, pocket deuces, jack nine suited. So when they raise here and we have a very good hand that can cooler that range that is raising here, we should be putting in a bet 3-bet, pile in more money right now, because they have a very strong range that's just not going to fold. Exploit number 5, when we are playing against a player who loves to trap with all of their strong hands. All right, so we have pocket nines here once again. We open on the button. This player calls in the big blind, jack nine deuce. Look at that. We're gonna c-bet half pot and they are going to call. Now we get a blank on the turn. And we said before, against the player type who's going to fast play a lot of their value, we just want to be betting huge on this turn quite a bit. But against a player who's going to trap, we may want to choose a smaller size, because even players who are trappy, if we give them another chance here to check raise by choosing a relatively reasonable size where we're not overbetting, they're gonna pile in more money for us on this turn when they wake up with a hand like pocket deuces. This also works even better when we have a hand like 7-6 of diamonds here. Why? Now getting to the river, we can be much more confident they don't get there with 2 pair of sets, which is a range that we feel pretty good about bluffing when we have 7-6 of diamonds. And the other side of the coin, we're playing against the same type of player who loves to trap their value, slow play their value on the flop. We open pocket jacks here, they call, we c-bet on this flop, and they check raise. How should we play this spot? Against a player who's going to be fast playing all their value, it makes sense to just start piling in money and go bet 3-bet here. But against a more trappy player who would often just flat here with pocket deuces or pocket nines or jack nine suited. When we have a hand that can play for stacks, we probably just want to be calling here. It's just going to be much more likely that they're just bluffing here or getting out of line. Now, what do we do here if we have a draw? If we had a hand like queen 10 of clubs, this may be a really good spot to put in the bet 3-bet, just knowing that they don't have a lot of sets in 2-pair here. So against a player who is going to fast play their value, we'd be putting in the bet 3-bet with all of our super strong hands like sets, and we just be calling with our draws. And against a player who's going to be slow playing, we just want to be calling with all of our sets, but now we can put in the bet 3-bet whenever we have a draw here, just knowing that they are unlikely to have a value hand themselves. Exploit number 6, I'm running out of fingers, when we are playing against a player who is super aggressive both with their draws and their value. All right, so we open pocket nines here on the button, jack nine deuce, what do you know? We are going to c-bet half pot here on the flop. We get a blank turn, and we are going to be overbetting again on this blank turn, just like when we're playing against the guy who fast plays all their value but plays their draws passively. Same reasons here, because this player just doesn't have a ton of hands that are gonna put in more money for us, but they still do have a bunch of ace jack, king jack, maybe some straight draws, maybe some worse flush draws that just aren't folding on this turn. So on the blank turns, we are still going to be putting in that overbet when we have very good hands and when we have a hand like 7-6 of diamonds here because they are capped. Interestingly, the adjustment against this player type is when the turn changes the nuts. So say we c-bet here on the flop half pot with the ace high flush draw, we bank the nuts here on this turn. So if we were playing against a player who's more passive with their draws, we may want to bet small here to give them a chance to still call with hands like king jack or queen jack and put in a raise themselves when they make a flush. But against a player who's just not going to have many flushes because they're playing a lot of their flush draws aggressively on the flop, when the turn changes the nuts, we are also going to want to choose a bigger size here, just knowing that this player is going to be more capped and they're not going to put in more money for us. And against the same player type, let's say we open pocket jacks on the button, the flop comes jack nine deuce, look at that, they check, we c-bet half pot, and they check raise. I may want to do quite a bit of calling since this player is going to be more aggressive. If they're the type of player who's going to raise a bunch of their draws and still barrel those hands off, and they're going to raise a bunch of their value and still bet thinly for value, now we just don't have as much of incentive to put in a ton more money when we have very strong hands because they're going to put in the money for us. So the adjustment against this type of player, when we do have these hands that can play for stacks like sets or 2-pair, we can just call quite a bit more. The adjustment here when we have a draw ourselves is oftentimes to go for that bet 3-bet and maximize fold equity against an aggressive player whose check raising range is just going to have too many bluffs in it. Exploit number 7, when we are playing against players who split their c-bet sizes and use larger sizes when they have very strong hands and medium or smaller sizes when they just have their medium strength hands or their draws. And I would say this type of player is much more common than you think in the live poker arena, and especially on wet dynamic boards. I would say probably 75% of the player pool is going to have sizing tells when they c-bet. So what adjustments do we make against this specific type of player? Let's say we flop bottom set here on jack nine deuce. We are in the big blind after they open the button, and now they c-bet large here. They c-bet for pot. We should just be putting in a massive check raise, knowing that they are probably not going to fold on this flop when they've just expressed to us, hey, excuse me, sir, I have a hand that's ace jack or better. Do you think they're folding that hand? No. So let's put in the massive check raise here whenever we have a hand that can cooler that range. And the adjustment here when we do have a draw, we should not be putting in nearly as many check raises, just knowing that we do not have fold equity here. So if we had an ace high flush draw like ace 3 of spades here, I'd be doing a lot of calling because I think if I check raise on this flop, I'm just not expecting to get a lot of folds. And the less fold equity we have, the more equity in our hand we need. The only draws I may be check raising facing a pot size c-bet from a weaker player here may be the big combo draws. What about when this type of player c-bets medium or small? So same type of situation here, we have bottom set and they c-bet half pot. When we have very strong hands, I would still be putting in the large check raise, right? Because if they have a hand like pocket 8s or pocket 7s, they're folding no matter what size we check raise here. But if they do have some of those draws that they would put in their small size, maybe those ace high, king high flush draws, maybe those open and straight draws, they are calling one time no matter what size size we check raise. So this may sound a little counterintuitive, but even when they c-bet small, I would still choose a very large check raise size when we have strong hands. What about when we have draws? Well, this is where we can get a little bit out of line here. If they're going to split their sizes and put most of their good hands in the big size, I'm going to be check raising pretty much anything with equity here. Any type of straight draw, any type of flush draw. I do think I have quite a bit of fold equity, so I'm going to be putting in a lot more check raises on this flop when I have draws myself. Exploit number 8, when you are playing against a player who c-bets a lot of their value, but checks back quite a bit of the time when they have showdown value or air. All right, against this type of player, I would treat their c-bets like a large c-bet from the player type we were exploiting before. Because when this type of player does have some of their draws or their medium strength hands or their air, they're going to be checking back. So when they c-bet, that means they're just going to have a stronger range. So even if this player were to c-bet half pot here or a smaller size, if I knew that they were checking back hands like pocket tens here or ace nine suited, now that just means I'm going to check raise huge here when I have a very strong hand like pocket deuces or pocket nines. And if I did have a draw here, I'd just be doing a lot of calling, knowing that I don't have much fold equity because they're putting a lot of their lower equity hands or medium strength hands in their check back range. So when they c-bet, they're just going to have a lot of strong hands. But what about when they check back the flop? So same player here, we flop bottom set, we check to them, and now they check back. Here's my exploit against this player on turns. When the turn is a blank, I want to be doing a ton of checking, both with my value hands and my bluffs, because what happens when we check on a blank turn? A lot of their showdown value hands, they're gonna start putting in a bet now for protection. So if they had a hand like ace nine suited or pocket tens here, even pocket eights, if we check twice to them, they're probably going to put in a bet. And if they did check back the flop with air, say they had 6-7 of diamonds here, a lot of players don't want to run the 3 street bluff with no equity with 7 high or something like that. But once we check to them twice, now they're going to be stabbing quite a bit, thinking that they have the green light. They're going to stab their showdown value, they're going to stab their air, and we can just put in the monster check raise, both with our bluffs and with our value. If the turn does change the nuts, say the turn was the 4 of spades, I'm just going to be doing a lot more overbetting, both with my bluffs and my value instead of check raising, because I'm not expecting them to stab nearly as much on the 4 of spades. If they have a hand like ace nine suited or pocket tens or something like that, when the flush comes in on the turn, they're going to check back quite a bit more than on a blank turn. And if they do have air here, like a hand like 7-6 of diamonds, I'm not sure these flushing turns get stabbed at an appropriate frequency as opposed to a blank turn. So my adjustment is on these nut changing cards, I'm just going to be putting in an overbet here quite a lot of the time, both when I have value and when I have bluffs, expecting them to call quite a bit on the turn. And on the river, we can go huge with our bluffs, just knowing they probably don't have many good hands after they check back the flop, and we can go relatively small with our value, trying to get hero called. Exploit number 9, when we are playing against a player who likes to donk their value whenever they get there on the river. All right, so let me show you an example here. We open up on the button with ace 3 of spades. The villain calls in the big blind, c-bet half pot here, they call. And again, on these flushing turns, the general MO here against most villains is to go small. So we go small on this turn, the villain calls again. We get to the river and the villain donks. So remember, this is the exploit against the villain who likes to donk their value on the river. What does this mean they have? It probably means they have a hand like a flush here. So raising 3x or 4x is just lighting money on fire. Say you got to this river with 7-6 of diamonds and your opponent flipped over a 10 high flush. Would you feel comfortable bluffing all in to get them to fold that hand? No. So when we have a strong hand, we should just be putting in all the money. And this may seem obvious here, but if we get to this river with air, the exploit against this player type is just to fold. Do not pay them off. Do not attempt to bluff them. They just have too much strong value when they donk on this river. All right, all of that's pretty obvious, but let's look at the other side of the coin, and I think this is the fun part here. So we open queen 10 of hearts on the button. This player calls, c-bet small on the flop, they call. Now the turn is a flushing card, so we are going to continue barreling here small, give them a chance to raise off their flushes and continue with a wider, weaker range. So we bet small, they call, and now we get to this river and they check to us. So what does that mean when they check to us? If they're going to be donking quite a lot of their strong hands here on this river, and if they're going to be check raising some of their strong hands on the turn, well, that means when they check this river, they just don't have any strong hands, right? The strongest hand they may get here with would be a hand like ace jack. And I feel pretty good about making a hand like ace jack fold when the front door flush draw comes in. So the big exploit against this player is not when they donk the river, but when they don't donk the river. Because if they don't donk the river, they have just essentially told you, hey, excuse me, sir, I do not have a very strong hand. So whenever we get here with air, that just means we have carte blanche to put in the big boy overbet bluff to exploit the crap out of this player. Conversely here now, what does that mean if we get to the same spot with the nuts? If we get here with ace 3 of spades, well, now that means we probably have to choose a relatively small size, because remember, this player would check raise off some of their flushes on the turn. They would donk all those flushes that didn't check raise a turn on the river. So that means if we do get here with a hand like ace 3 of spades, we need to choose a pretty small size on this river to get this player to call. Exploit number 10. Let's say we're playing against the opposite type of player who likes to donk all their missed draws on the river, but they go for the check call or check raise whenever they have value. All right, so against this type of player, we have queen 10 of hearts here. We're going to c-bet the flop. They call. We are going to go small on this flushing turn. They call again, and now they are going to donk on the river. So the adjustment against the type of player who's going to donk quite a bit of their missed draws on the river is just to put in a bunch of min clicks whenever we have hands that can't beat those draws. And if we got to the spot with any type of showdown value at all, I'm calling, right? If I can beat king high here, I'm just going to be calling here a ton on this river. And finally, same type of situation here. We open up queen 10 on the button against the type of player who likes to donk their missed draws on the river. We c-bet the flop, they call, we bet small on the turn, they call, and now they check the river. So what is the exploit against this type of player when they check the river? Well, if they're bluffing all of their missed draws, and now they check the river, that probably means we should give up, right? No! No, and this may be counterintuitive, but just because they're donking their missed draws here doesn't mean they have a range that can withstand heat on the river. We still bet small on the flop, so they would raise off their jack 9 suited, their pocket 9s, their pocket deuces. We bet small on the turn, so they would raise off their flushes. So getting to this river, even though we know now that they don't have a missed draw, most of the range is still going to look like weak showdown value, one pair hands, because they would still raise off their flushes on the turn. So even against this player that would donk their missed draws on this river, I would still be putting in a huge overbet with my bluffs. And if we got here with a hand like ace 3 of spades, I would still choose a relatively small size, knowing that most of the range still looks like one pair hands on this river. Exploit number 11. When we are against a more passive player who checks back the river oftentimes, even when they have no showdown value, we've all seen this type of player, right? They get to the river with a draw, and after c-betting the flop and double barreling the turn, they just check back the river, even when they have queen high or 7 high or whatever. Here's how to exploit them. So let's say they open the button here. We call in the big blind with ace jack, flop top pair, top kicker. Pretty good. Ace jack is a good hand if you know the flop's gonna come jack 9 deuce. They c-bet the flop, we call. Turn is a blank. They double barrel, we call. And the exploit against this type of player, when we have pretty good hands on the river, is just to donk, knowing that this type of player is not the type of player who's going to put in that triple barrel with a flush draw or a brick straight draw here. We're not missing value against their bluffs, so the good exploit here is just to lead whenever we have a strong value hand. And finally, last exploit against this player type, when we do check to them on the river and they fire that third barrel, we should just be folding a whole hell of a lot. Do not consider bluff catching against this player type, because even if they're bluffing 1 out of 40 times, if you've seen them check back with 7 high or 10-8 suited, that means they are massively under bluffing. So when they do fire that triple barrel, well, they just have too much value. And if we are against a player who is under bluffing, every bluff catcher should be folded. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and these 11 exploits help you level up your game and boost your win rate significantly. Thank you, guys, and have a gentle day.